get a lot of questions in the gym with creatine, HMB, as well as beta alanine. I thought this is a way better way of me answering one-on-one, is to go directly to the source. So I guess to say, why don't you talk your role?
Yeah. So I'm the founder of Blonyx. The idea for the company came about like 10 years ago. I used to be an athlete. I was playing soccer at Iowa State University and also training quite regularly in the gym, heavy lifting and things like that. And I also ran, at the time when I was an athlete at Iowa State, I ran some studies on sports supplements. And I ran this year-long study to kind of figure out what supplements actually work according to the science. We published those results. We got them in a journal of Applied Physiology. And then I kind of went down to a supplement store to go and pick up those supplements that I knew worked. And it was unreal. I mean, the supplement stores of today, it's the same as it was back then. Tons and tons of products on the shelves. And I looked through them. I'm like, I don't know what half of these are. These claims over here are simply not true, and these claims over here just haven't been tested, and that's kind of the state of the supplement industry. So I started Blonyx and founded it on that basis. It's like I was frustrated as an athlete. I just wanted clarity. I wanted to know what worked, and just that product. I didn't want anything else in there. I didn't want any additives, preservatives, nothing. So that's kind of the foundation. And about 9-10 years ago, I simply started the company with that in mind. And here we are today. We've only, we kind of start from the science, and my role in the company is, I run it, but really the operations are taken care of and everything else. And my staff kind of keep me focused on product development, getting out there, understanding the research, and kind of thinking about how we're growing and how we're positioning ourselves.
Yeah, and the stuff like creatine, HMB, beta alanine, like those products, of all the supplements available, have the most research behind them. Like the monohydrate creatine is there's like 16,000 papers or something. Is that right? Like
it's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, there's, you got to take that with a pinch of salt. There's that many when you search for it on the usual databases, but a lot of that is now in health. So there's a lot of research into supplementation in things like, muscle loss in certain disease conditions and that kind of stuff. There's new area is cognitive function, which I'm quite interested in. Things like how alert you are, not only but training, but everything from military exercises to just general day-to-day kind of thing.
But it's also been expanding across lines from like lifting and that sort of stuff into obviously into CrossFit, but also into like endurance now too, right?
Yeah, it is. The stuff on endurance isn't that promising to me. Looking at it, they've tried it. I think it's more to do with things like power output at the end, in that final sprint kind of thing. So there's potential for it there. Okay. But things like muscle damage and muscle wasting, and preserving your muscle as well when you're less active, that's an area that's starting to come out. So it's kind of, it's the performance side of it. It used to be just bodybuilding. It used to be strength, but mainly muscle mass, because that's one thing that creatine does is take like water, water into your muscles pretty quickly. So people notice, if you've never taken it before, you'll take it, and within the first, it can be a few weeks, you'll notice this kind of like, I've just gained a bunch of muscle there kind of thing. And it's that water being pulled in. So it used to be the bodybuilding supplement, and that's how I know it back in the days of Body for Life, Bill Phillips and all that. I know you're familiar with that, Jesse, and that. And it was but it's moved from there. Now I think it's been taken a lot more seriously. Creatine monohydrate, it's very much more performance, focus is where it's going in athletics now. Yeah.
So with that, with creatine, and so creatine HMB as a product that you guys sell, I guess like the things that come to mind are like with that water weight, like that's a concern for people. But that's part of the process of the creatine doing its job, right? Like it requires that water molecule to bind to.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. It binds. It goes into the muscle and it binds with that water molecule. It's quite hydrophilic, so it's like it really latches onto water. And it's another reason why you shouldn't take creatine, or you should avoid taking creatine on an empty stomach, because it will dry out your stomach lining quite quickly. And anyone who, some people who do that, you definitely know about it. You'll get slight stomach cramping on an empty stomach, and it's just that sucking up that water. So it naturally wants to bind to water the whole time, and that's exactly what it's doing, taking a water molecule, going into the muscle, and you get that kind of pump.
And then with taking it, what's the reason? Like why would someone take it? Like a CrossFitter or a powerlifter? Like that's our people. So like what would be the benefit? What should they expect to see?
Totally. So creatine, what it does when it gets into the muscles, it binds with something called a phosphate. So it becomes creatine phosphate. Now, creatine phosphate is the absolute fastest energy source that you have in your body. If you go all out, heavy deadlift, anything like that, max, even power, like kind of movement, the first thing you need is the maximum amount of energy you can produce.
Yeah, first bunch of seconds, right?
Exactly, first couple of seconds. And so it's the quickest way of releasing that energy from your stores. So you've got to see creatine as a store of immediate muscle energy. So the more you have in your muscles as a store, then the more there is for that initial first few seconds of power output kind of thing. Now that's the main thing, the easiest way to kind of see it. So if you do take it, you up that store of that immediate energy source. And so when people take it, they're usually by about week 2, week 3, they'll start to notice like PRs. That's where PRs normally come in, especially with people who don't take it normally, or especially if you're vegetarian, vegan, that kind of thing, you don't have much creatine naturally in your diet from the meat that you're taking in, then you'll see that real kind of jump in your PRs. And my honest opinion on it, and this is looking at the research and knowing it inside out for the last 20 years of my life now, is that you see that jump up, but then it will plateau again. It's not like it continues up like that. You kind of up your levels in your muscle, and then it kind of sits there at that higher level, and you just keep having to top it up after that first period. So that's the basic way. Yeah, see it as a muscle store for that real all-out power movement.
And then for CrossFitters, same thing.
Same thing, but then this gets more complicated, because one thing about the creatine phosphate system, that energy, is that you keep recycling. So every time you rest, what your other energy systems do, like your aerobic energy system, your breathing, that kind of stuff, is they're quickly trying to put that energy that you've used back into the store like that. And it happens real quickly. So deadlift, I know deadlift, one of your favorite movements. If you go all out and do 4 or 5 rep max on your deadlift, you come off of that and you're going to be breathing heavy afterwards. It's like 4 or 5 seconds. Yeah. That's replenishing your systems, especially your creatine phosphate system. So you think of CrossFit, where CrossFit, you're continually, workout bout. It's intermittent, right? It's like workout bout, rest, workout rest. That's a lot of how we live our lives as CrossFitters, kind of like half the time. And in that time, you're continually restoring that creatine phosphate system. If you have more creatine in there, you have more of that store that you can put that energy back into, and you'll be able to do more each subsequent bout. So I think it's a great supplement for CrossFit, definitely.
And then the HMB.
Yeah, HMB is a different beast. So HMB is, it's one of my favorite performance supplements out there. And it's very much, it will continue to improve your performance as you go along, taking it months and months and months, and you'll notice the difference. And this is much more about adaptation to the training that you're doing. And what it essentially is a substance that prevents you from breaking down as much muscle in your natural muscle formation and breakdown cycle. So continually throughout our lives, our genes are constantly saying to us, you need this much muscle, or you need this much muscle, depending, and they're constantly breaking it down, reforming it, that kind of thing. Taking HMB tells your body to go, I'm going to make this much, but I'm not going to break down as much. I'm just going to, keep making it, kind of thing. So, and it also, that's one thing it does. And the other thing it does is protect your muscle tissue from damage. So if you're doing heavy training where you expect to have a lot of muscle soreness from it, and you're taking HMB, you don't see as much of damage to your muscle tissue. So you think about that, you don't need as much recovery time. It's like if you and I trained and we're here, we both do the same training, I'm protected by HMB, I drop to there, you drop down to here. The amount of recovery time to get back to we're ready to train again, it's going to take you a lot longer.
And that's actually what I would say is I've experienced the most using the product over, I don't know, like I think
2012, 13.
Yeah. I think I was going to say, I was like, I feel like it's almost been 10 years. Yeah, that's the biggest thing I would say that I've experienced is it just feels like the return to being able to train at capacity again is just that bit quicker.
Yeah.
Okay, so with those things, then it would come to usage, like the things people
Hmm.
talk about is like the old school cycling on, cycling off, double dosing for the first week, all that sort of stuff. That's not really a thing anymore, right?
It isn't. Yeah. I mean, you can do it. It's a way to, if you've taken creatine for the first time. So creatine monohydrate is the thing that it's like cycle on, cycle off, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the research does show use a loading dose. It's usually about 20 grams a day for the first week, to just basically get your muscle stores up as soon as possible. Now, I think that was really focused on getting as much of that pump as soon as possible, kind of thing. Whereas you actually, even if you took a quarter of that, 5 grams a day for about 2 weeks, you're going to get the same saturation level pretty soon after.
Right.
So you're going to be missing 4 or 5 days of kind of time. And my opinion on that with creatine is, firstly, it costs you a bit more to do that. And the
Yeah.
second one is there can be stomach issues with it. And, we get maybe 1 in 10 people going, I didn't really deal with my stomach that well. And we just say, well, take it with food. But if you're doing, this is with 5 grams a day that we
Right.
those people, when it's 20 grams a day, you're much more risk of that kind of stomach issue. So I always tell people, it's like, don't worry about that. Just keep it consistent, 5 grams a day. And you'll be good within, in 2 weeks, you'll be the same as somebody after a week of dosing it highly like that.
Yeah. With a bunch left in the container.
Exactly. Yeah. And in terms of the cycling off and cycling on, I really don't know where that came from. I think, I have a feeling it was one thing people always say about our Creatine HMB product is they really notice it when they come off it. They stop taking it and they're like, whoa, I am sore again. And I don't feel that power output that I had before, that speed kind of thing like that. And it's like, so I have a feeling this might have been a marketing ploy back in the day where they're like, well, if you come off it every 6 months, you'll remember why you stayed on it. And then you'll start buying it again. So it might be something to do with that.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I know, like for me, like I just take the recommended dose like every day and with no change. The only time I don't bother is like travel for pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Is that's the only time, is if I'm going somewhere on a vacation, and really mostly it's because I can't be bothered to sort of like pack anything extra. But I definitely noticed it on return. And the cognitive one's interesting actually, because I'd say with that is a while back I started noticing that if I stayed taking it during event weekends, that I actually felt better, like as not as a competitor, but as like running the event. So I actually felt it made a difference for when I was like doing regionals and game stuff, is that I actually took it with me on those trips and stayed on it through the event weekends, like as a like overhead team, and thought that was like a curious piece. What do you mix it with?
We've been debating this in the office today, actually, because we always kind of look for higher purity ingredients. That's one thing that we do. We kind of have a promise to the people we serve. It's like we will always have the highest quality. So we're continually testing that and doing that. But when we change, so if we go, we found a higher quality HMB, and now we're talking like 99.7% kind of thing. We got real Breaking Bad stuff now, kind of like that, But we got that purity. But every time we change, there's a slight taste change and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, and people have got, when we do it, we realize that people have got such rigorous regimens and how they take it and the way they do it. It mixes with anything. It's got quite a bitter taste to it, and that's the HMB in there. It's not great taste, and I like it like that personally, because I know that there's no additives, no preservative. It's the cleanest label you'll get. There is nothing else in there, no flow agents, none of this stuff you really don't need. But the downside is we're not adding stevia, sugar, or anything like that to it. So the thing for the taste. So I personally take it literally in the mouth with a scoop, and then down it with a bit of water when I brush my teeth. Every time I brush my teeth, that's how I do it, straight away. Like
oh
that.
man,
But the guys in the office and most of our customers, I think they either mix it with a smoothie or whatever. You know, they have the ritual.
Oh yeah, they do. Huh?
Yeah, you can go straight in that. Coffee is a good one. You can dump
and it really doesn't matter. Huh? Like it makes no difference for uptake.
No difference for uptake or anything like that. I'm a big fan of taking it after food, as I keep mentioning. But I think another thing about that is that just kind of going into your system naturally with your food is always a better thing. Your body sees
that's
it.
That's what I think too.
Yeah.
I've done the same thing. I try to take it like at breakfast, after breakfast, and then after like a lunch or meal. And that's the other piece too, is that the time of day doesn't really matter. It's just getting the recommended dosage into the system daily, and then all the rest of those, like that's not about putting it around the workout or taking it on only on training days and that sort of stuff. It's just like you said, with what it's doing, it just matters that it's in the system and there to be used.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is some research that shows that with HMB, especially if you do take it closer to a workout, one of your doses, soon before or after, there may be a little benefit to it. But personally, I think the most important thing is that you have that regular routine to take it.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like if you start to mess, unless you are very, if you're not me and you're very good at kind of bringing in new habits kind of thing, then it's like twice a day, keep it the same every day. Don't worry about
just the consistency, right? Because you're likely to suffer worse by missing dosages in attempts to time it than they are to like get it around the meal but miss a dose here and there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One comment on creatine HMB when getting it. So one thing I've seen, so creatine HMB came off patent about I think it was about 3 years ago. I used to work for the company that patented it, Iowa State University, and there's a biotech company there, which is why I know it quite intimately. But it came off patent about 3 years ago, and straight away there were a bunch of companies that started trying to make it in their own labs kind of thing. So you do see quite a variation in quality. It's getting better. It's like creatine. Over time, creatine just got so good that now it doesn't matter where you get it from. Creatine monohydrate, and I'm happy to say this, is high quality pretty much on any legitimate company that's out there. As long as the company is not trying to cut corners in too many ways kind of thing, it'll be decent. HMB is catching up with that, but it still can be lower quality. But one thing that I've seen a lot of companies do, because HMB is relatively expensive, is they underdose it. All of the research shows that you should be taking, if you're weighing about 185 pounds, so kind of average weight and average, same for female average, you should be taking about 3 grams a day. And a lot of these brands, and you'll see them, and you look on the back and it'll say 2 grams a day. And it's one thing I don't like about the supplement industry is that is a classic tactic to make money from people at the expense of their performance. You're making a promise to say, I'm going to improve your performance, and here you go. And it's an underdosed product. I just think, we need to put people's performance first and say, this is what the research says and this is what we do. But there are a number of companies, and I'm happy to say a few, like Advocare is one big company in the US. I think they had an HMB product and they took it off the market, but they were underdosing it. It's that kind of practice. So do be careful when you're looking for it. And my recommendation is 3 grams a day of HMB. If you are above the 200-pound mark, then you want to up that a little bit in proportion to body weight. And then with creatine, 5 grams a day is a definite like middle of the road. You can go a bit lower. I think that's a good dosage on creatine there, 5 grams.
Yeah, and that's it. And so that's 2 scoops from the container a day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. With beta alanine, we talked about this. This is
favorite
what started
subject
this.
Right now. Yeah,
totally. This is what started this. Is as soon as it got mentioned, but that was on Joe Rogan, right? The Matt Fraser mentioned it.
Yeah,
he mentioned that on Joe Rogan. I was like, watch what happens next. So I've got a bunch of questions then about beta alanine, which unfortunately, like that's a product for me where I'm just like, I know it's for CrossFitters. It's not really a lifters piece, but I know a lot of people are taking it definitely at the high level and taking it very seriously. But I know 0 things past that about what it's doing in the system, dosing, what to expect, like all those sort of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is my history quickly with HMB. Is I started monitoring it quite early on, but there wasn't enough research out there. There were like 5-6 studies on it, and they looked pretty good. And over this last, man, I want to say 4 or 5 years, it has absolutely blown up on beta alanine. Like after the 6th study, 7th study, I'm like, we need to get this product in it. It's consistent research. It's good research. This is an indication of a product that works, as opposed to it's all over the place. Like BCAAs are all over the place. Don't take them.
Totally.
Don't take them. Don't worry. Don't waste your money. Beta alanine, definitely, it's consistent like that. And what I'll tell you what it is, it's basically an amino acid, non-essential amino acid derivative of, and it's you find it in meat, fish and meat primarily, and consume it, and it links with another amino acid, histidine, and it becomes carnosine. So that's all you need to know is beta alanine goes into the body, goes into the muscle, and becomes carnosine. Carnosine is one of your body's natural buffers for acidity. So it keeps the pH, the acid level in your muscles, regulated at a certain level. Now, day-to-day activities, that doesn't matter at all. It stays about the same, except when you train. And when you train and you train above a certain intensity, you start kicking off lactic acid. So if you're, like a 400 meter, 800 meter runs, sprint rows, intervals, anything in CrossFit, pretty much, you're above what they call the lactate threshold, which means you're kicking out this lactic acid and lactate. Now, lactate is good. It's an energy source, and it's your body's natural way of recycling it. However, if you're training at an intensity where you're making too much of it, it starts to mess around with the acidity of your muscle. So that acidity starts to go up. A lot of people see it as that burn, that muscle burn in your legs, especially kind of thing. When you are hitting that point near fatigue, you feel the burn and you have to stop kind of thing. And it can happen anywhere, but if your rep range is around this kind of 10 to 20 mark on rep scheme, but also if you're doing 500 meter row sprints, anything like that, about that burn.
Totally.
So if you have the ability, and this is the theory behind it, to buffer that acid so it doesn't build up quite as much, 2 things happen. Firstly, if you're working at a steady state, you can go a little bit higher in intensity, right? So you basically can kick off a little bit more lactic acid at a certain work rate. So if I'm rowing at 1,000 meters at, say, a 2 minute 500 meter split kind of thing, and I do that, and normally that is a bit above my workload, and I kind of taper off at the end, I might be able to stay up there and keep that higher intensity when I'm doing it, kind of thing. So that they call that time to fatigue. So you can keep going at an intensity for a longer period of time. That's the first one. The second one is your body can do that 1 extra or 2 extra reps each cycle kind of thing. So, if I'm doing, I don't know, a bunch of push-ups sort of thing. I know you've been programming these in the gym recently, where it's like on the minute, every minute kind of thing. Yeah. And people go, right, I'm doing 10s. Towards the end, you start breaking them up. If you're taking beta alanine, you won't have to break them up as much, because you'll be able to get that extra couple out before you feel that burn and that real fatigue there. So there's 2 aspects of it, and the research is great on it. That time to fatigue. So if you are, if you're doing Murph, for example, and you're running that first mile, you'll be able to do it quicker at a higher intensity. And there's a really good study on 10K run time with beta alanine. It'll shave your time down. And the other one is that rep, it's those reps that you're going to get out if you do DT.
Right. So you're seeing runners taking that as well.
Yeah. So
up to what distance?
I would say, personally, I think any distance. If the theory is right on it, then you are going to just be able to, especially the longer distances, you're going to be able to operate at a slightly higher level. Your running speed will be slightly higher, because your body will be able to handle the lactic acid, because you want to stay right at that point where you're not quite lactic, you're not kicking that acid, or it's just at the right level that your body can handle it. If your body can handle that a little bit more, you can go at that slightly higher intensity. So that 10K study is only one out just so far. I think that's really interesting. And I think road cyclists, mountain bikers, endurance athletes, it's coming your way. I think it's really coming your way. Yeah.
So on that then, what's like, I actually haven't tried that product myself because it's been a while since I've pushed the lactate threshold. But like, what's a daily dosage? What's the cycling? What's the, like, what are you doing with the container of that?
Yeah, so the dose you should be looking at is around the 6 grams a day mark, and that's in line with the research there. What we do is we split that into 2 doses, and the reason is because there's a side effect for beta alanine. I'll come back to that in a sec. So 6 grams a day split into 2, but it's you need to take it every day. It's just like the HMB creatine. You need to constantly keep that level topped up, the carnosine levels in your blood and your muscle topped up. So keep taking it 6 grams a day. The reason we split it, the side effect it has, it is a nerve stimulant. So it sounds quite scary, but it's not at all. It's completely benign. There's nothing wrong with the side effect. But when you take it, and especially if you've never taken it before, you start to feel like a pins and needle kind of feeling, usually up your arms. And I get it in my head quite a bit as well. And we get people messaging us about it and saying, I've had a huge reaction to your product. I'm not going to take it again, that kind of stuff because of it. It's called Paresthesia, completely harmless, but it's quite stimulating.
It sounds terrible.
Yeah, some people, when they don't know what's going on, it freaks them out a little bit. But you'll find that a lot of athletes, they like it. It's quite energizing. It's quite, it's almost like a flush, kind of thing. I remember when, again, playing soccer, right, these guys used to rub this stuff all over their legs just to get the heat going, this like Raugex or whatever it is, that, and it's kind of like that. And so beta alanine as a stimulant is used in pre-workouts. This is a lot of people who take pre-workouts who are probably watching this right now. They're going, yeah, I know what you mean. There's a pre-workout I used to take that did that to me. That's beta alanine in that, but it's not a pre-workout. A lot of companies selling it as a pre-workout. It is not a pre-workout product. It's something you should take regularly, but just be careful of that side effect. If you do experience it, you can just reduce your dosage a little bit, get used to it, and then move it back up again. And it will.
And that's just a phase in process. Like when you're taking it, that's just something you deal with on the nose of that product. And then with time, that's just not a thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then, taking it sort of daily, whether you're training or not, to just have that loaded into the muscle tissue so that it's there when it's like ready to be accessed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a great product. I think it's great. But of no interest to you really, Jesse. I think it's the research in like
so for lifters then nothing, even for like hypertrophy, bodybuilding, that sort of stuff. Like, is there anything with the volume on that? Like, does that make any change?
That's an interesting question. The research isn't there yet on it. And thinking about it, even with powerlifters and that kind of thing, if the type of training you're doing, if you are depends on what rep range you're working in. I know you like to do a lot of accessory work, for example, and that accessory work will be where you will benefit from that. Because in some
ways it does sound, you're like, well, that our lifters are also doing that high volume sets. It's just not necessarily like you end up breathing hard enough, feels like, but it's not just that full maximum cardiovascular output in the same way. Yeah, it actually would be interesting to sort of see what the feeling of that effects were with like with just like the volume and style of the way that we lift. I'd be kind of curious, actually.
Yeah, I think the way you live, especially like I said, the real emphasis that you put on accessory work.
Totally.
And
it's 80% of what we're doing on the lifting side.
Yeah.
And it's usually that's where you're getting that's where things are getting rough, right? Like the max is only 20. That's 2 times a week. The rest of the time, 80% of the volume is accessory and volume. That one might be worth a little tries on. And then tested, so clean for athletes. Both products.
Both products. We use a facility that's NSF for sport certified, so nothing is allowed even on the premises that is a banned substance whatsoever. And that's kind of how we start there, and then we get like every few batches we get tested just for peace of mind and double check on that. But yeah, to be honest, it's quite easy to keep your products clean and free from,
regardless of what athletes will tell you.
Yeah, regardless of what athletes will tell you. And it's when the experiences that I've seen with we've had sponsored athletes that have come to us and say, hey, I tested positive. What
Is
happened
there any
there, kind
chance?
of thing. Yeah. And it turns out that in those situations, it turns out that they were taking a supplement from a very small company that was based around there, that were making the product themselves, like in the garage or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And this happens, there's a lot of money to be made not doing it. This is the thing about the supplement industry, where a lot of people are price sensitive. And so keep your prices down, you need to cut corners. Guess what? Testing is one of the first ones that cut corners. The second one is using a proper GMP, high quality manufacturing facility. It's like, well, we can do this, in our kitchen kind of thing, and make it there. And
bigger, faster, stronger.
Exactly. And that's where the trouble comes in. And I remember there's one place, well-known place in the Midwest, where they were making SARMs. So they're making these, I can't remember exactly how SARMs work. They're not reuptake inhibitors. I can't remember, but basically they were making that for the medical market. And then they were literally going, right, quickly just dust off the bench, right? Let's make some pre-workout like that. And you're like, this sort of stuff happens. And it happens. That's why I always say, stay with reputable companies who know their stuff, that don't, especially if they're a huge company and they'll do the manufacturing themselves. If they're a smaller company, farm that out to a company, a manufacturing facility that knows what they're doing and has all the certifications. That's what we do. Yeah.
There's just if you're an athlete who tests positive, it's bad. It's real bad. So if you're in a tested sport, it is just taking a chance on that is such a terrible, terrible plan. Like, you listen to some of these athletes' stories and you're like, man, if this is true at all, which, who knows? You're just like, that's a nightmare. But at the same time, you're like, well, what were you thinking? Like, you took a product, like there's nothing on the label that says this is athlete safe or tested, or you don't know where it's coming from. You can't, it's, not just taking, like, you're not just mixing stuff together, taking bottles off the shelf, right?
If I was an athlete, it's exactly what I would do. Is I would, before I take the product, I would message the company and I would say, I want your assurance in writing that this product does not contain any banned substances. And I want that email chain. And I want to know from you that if I get test positive and it's found to be in your products, that you're on the line here, you've told me that that's not the case. Because that's what you want to take. You want to take to the sporting body. You're like, I got this product tested, and that's what contains that ingredient. And I have an email here to show that, that this company doesn't do that. So it's that on them, and then you can sue them as well. So for that, but otherwise you're on your own if you're taking it, without doing that. So Yep.
I think that's all the things, man. That's the stuff that comes to mind. I don't know if I'm missing stuff, but let's get this like together and out there.
Yeah.
And let's post it up, and then just anything else that people have for you, just post a comment, or see you around the gym.
Yeah, exactly. And anyone, at Squamish Barbell, Squamish CrossFit, who wants to chat on this stuff, just come and grab me. I don't bite. And then any questions on that, or just send me a message. Ask Jesse for my Facebook profile or something like that, and just drop me a line, whatever. My phone number, whatever you want. Just give me a shout. Cool.
Sweet, man.